We'd been together since I was 21, as you say. It completely enmeshed, really strong marriage. I didn't know me. Then the last time me was me, I was 21. Spent a lot of time finding out again, rediscovering what life I wanted. And then everything else, I was seeking the support to help me do that. But I had, I say, within 8, 9 weeks, I started to have a clear view that, okay, I don't want to just sit here and gracefully I could live 20 plus years. And what a waste that would be if my life ended at the same time as Michael's.
Welcome to Season 4 of the Widow Podcast. I'm Karen Sutton, the Widow Coach, and I'll be supporting you through the loss of your life partner so you can find a more positive way through your grief. Whether this is your first episode or you've been with me for a while, I want you to know you are capable of creating something meaningful after loss. And you don't have to do it alone. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Widow Podcast. This week I have a very special guest, a guest that has absolutely bowled me over with her approach to widowhood. And obviously, I've worked with many widows over the last five or so years, and I've had my own journey. I've had lots of conversations, lots of experiences, and as with all of us, we're learning all the time, right? And Lynne has been on such a journey in her widowhood that how she's navigated it and how she has found, I think, and I will let Lynne speak for herself, but a solid foundation almost in widowhood really quite early on. And I don't like to put time frames onto anything because I completely understand that we're all so different. We have different personalities, different outlooks, different, financial circumstances, different support networks, our location, our experiences. All of those things impact how we show up in our grief and in life. However, I do believe, and this isn't to say that I'm absolutely right, but I do believe that there are certain things that we can all do that help us in our grief to reduce the suffering and get to a place where we can find some inner peace and some joy in life again alongside our grief. And Lynne has done this really quickly and really well. And that's not to say anyone else hasn't done it well, but you know, when you're watching somebody's journey and you're thinking, oh my God. And we were just talking now before we started recording. And I said to Lynne, I'd noticed it was last Christmas and we have a little check-in in our membership. And Lynne was kind of checking in around a 9 out of 10. And I would say just after the year mark, really. And it was consistent on the run up to Christmas. And in my mind, I was thinking, oh, bless her, she's doing really well, but she's probably going to sink at some point because we do, right? It's a roller coaster ride. We're up and down like yo-yos. But Lynne kept coming back and she kept being a 9. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, how are you doing it? So I have invited the lovely Lynne to come and share her story, her wisdom, her insights, her learnings with us all on the Widow Podcast, because I don't know about you, but I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued. So Lynne, welcome and thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you so much. And as I don't profess to be an expert in this, and we're all different marriages, different grief, but anything I can say that can resonate. I got so much from these podcasts. These were my very early. I found a community. I found someone who gets it. I've found somewhere I can be witnessed. This was real early part of my healing journey. So yeah, if anything resonates with any one person, I'll be delighted.
I've no doubt that it will, Lynne. You really have learned so much, and you've absorbed yourself, I think, in learning and growing and understanding grief and yourself and life. And you've been, I think, from, my observations, you've been determined right from the very beginning to figure out how to live alongside your grief well, in your version of what that looks like. But you have really fought for a life after loss, haven't you? Was that something that have you always been like that around, wanting to live, or is that something that you noticed after Michael died?
I've always felt a sense of gratitude from where I was in my life to where I've got to. I've always felt a sense of I've kind of exceeded expectations of both myself and others in my life. And I think I very quickly got to and you know what, I really want to hang on to that bit of me as I finish this journey. But I mean, it was by no means, I mean, the start of it completely, like a freight truck. As you say, Michael died July 2023, and I was 58 at the time, which is a young widow, but not a young person. And I'm looking at myself thinking, it felt a strange age for me, because I was thinking to myself, if this had happened to me in my 30s and 40s, I feel I could have more clarity and know that I both want and need to build a whole full life again. And that would have included career, highly probable would have included a partner, maybe even included adding to my family, at that age. And I would have known that I wanted and needed that. And I found myself, I think, at this 58 thinking, okay, well, I've retired. My family have grown up. Do I sit here and fester? I could gracefully coast into old age, because I'm not working. And did. It was a fine line and balance. There's an attractive option of okay, the good years are behind me. I can look back on them. I can play the vinyls and the records and remember those great years and just sort of gracefully slide into old age. And, and I really tested that theory for some time, in terms of my pajamas and not washing my hair and barely brushing my teeth. But there just did come a point where I thought, you know what? You're not honouring what you've achieved in life, and you're not honouring the kind of the privilege of life. Because I mean, if nothing else, it tells us all the privilege of this, and it's a one time only journey. So I got to that, and actually I was looking back in my journal, as I did start journaling, which is not something I do, but I was looking back, and even before month 2, I wrote in it, how do I find a way to live this life and bring Michael with me in peace?
Wow.
And I was still my body was still in complete shock, but I thought, okay, I'm feeling that and I want that. And I started very early on then, I think, thinking about that. And again, in pure hindsight, I've been making this up as I go along, but in pure hindsight, I went for individual counselling very early on. And I'd never been in counselling before, so I didn't know what to expect. But what it actually did was it pulled the me out of the we. We'd been together since I was 21, as you say. It completely enmeshed, and really strong marriage. It was the biggest cheerleader, lover, supporter, all those things around it. But I didn't know me. Then the last time me was me, I was 21. And actually, in hindsight, what that did for me was I spent a lot of time finding out again, rediscovering who me was, what me needed in terms of care, what life I wanted in that process. And what that then did for me was really set the foundation then for all the other support. So I knew at this point I needed to help myself, but I also knew I couldn't do that on my own. I needed to do that. But what that did was I'd kind of established this is the life I want. So when I reached out for support and all the amazing support I did through yours, and you'll know I threw myself in, you're probably fed up seeing me between the podcast, remember, the Finding Hope and Widowhood, then I'm pop up at the retreat. I knew what I wanted out of life. I'd spent the time with the counsellor unpicking the marriage and the me and what I want and what my values are and what I want my life to look like in the future. And in doing that, had really established my value of me on my own. I was able to see very early on my value didn't die with Michael. My life didn't die with Michael. My opportunity for joy and to do bigger things and to grow didn't die with Michael. And I think that just came from one-on-one, because that is very personal.
Yeah.
And then everything else, I was seeking the support to help me do that. But I had, I say, within 8-9 weeks, I started to have a clear view that, okay, I don't want to just sit here and gracefully I could live 20 plus years. And what a waste that would be if my life ended at the same time as Michael's.
That's amazing. It really is amazing, Lynne, on so many levels, that you were able to access that inner knowing.
Yes, and I recognise I have a privilege of, I wasn't working and I had the resources to spend time and think, you know, I didn't have a family to raise them.
But I also think you're quite unique in that you said within those first 8 or 9 weeks of having that one-to-one therapy, that's what came through for you. Now, you know, I work with a lot of widows, and those first 8 or 9 weeks, people aren't always able to access that part of them in that time. That, you know, it's that the grief is so big. I'm not saying yours wasn't at all. Of course it was. And I guess I'm curious around how you allowed yourself, maybe, or how you were able to, you know, that those one-to-one situations, the conversations you were having, were you working in between sessions on sort of regulating your nervous system, bringing safety into your body, sitting with the questions, being really curious? Were you actively doing things to support those sessions, rather than just going offloading for an hour, then coming back and being, you know, like drowning in your grief? Does that make sense, Lynne?
Yes, yeah, no, I definitely did. And actually, the counsellor did quite a lot of that. She was a very specific grief counsellor. So we did a lot of centering and sitting in the moment. We did a lot of, she talked a lot around the model you used. I can't remember the name of it, but this restorative, spend time in restorative and in. And I'd have homework from those sessions, which were also about taking care of myself. And because they would go deep, you know, they'd go to moments in the marriage that, you know, weren't great. They'd go to moments before the marriage in my childhood that weren't. So they were deep things about getting back to who is Lynne, you know, before, during, and now after this marriage. So yeah, she was very good at that. And actually, she ran some sessions which were in nature. So I also joined her. She ran some sessions in nature. We literally walked around, as a group of us walked around the woods and lakes and things. And then there was some of the sort of nature reserve people that worked there, and they'd come and we'd do the frog spawn and identifying plants. It was just completely just relaxing. And I think generally 8-year-olds do it, you know, the school trip for the 8-year-olds. It was kind of that equivalent. But yeah, so I think she also helped me do that. Yeah. And I started reading. I mean, at this same time, I mean, I started listening to your podcast at 3 weeks in. I joined Remember at 5 weeks in. And I joined Finding Hope at probably about 7 months in. And that's purely because it was the next intake. Yeah. I couldn't have joined it any sooner. And then the retreat, I think, ended up being about 8 or 9 months in, again, because that was when the next retreat was. So this was going on as well.
Yeah.
And I was reading. I think I've discovered I like a lot of data. Facts were definitely my friend, because I think one of the things I didn't learn till later on in your program, but some of our trauma and complexity comes from the stories we tell ourselves and the feelings we have, and separating the facts from the feelings and the stories. I got a lot of that in the books I read. You know, very early on, day 2, I think, a friend bought me the Richard E. Grant book, A Pocket Full of Happiness. His wife's story was pretty much identical to Michael's, including the same oncologist who is named in it as you read it. So within about day 5, I basically read, people die. This isn't personal. Even with the best medical intervention, it wasn't something Michael or I could have done more of, fought harder, done less of if I'd have been a better carer. So I was starting to get these messages in as well. And is it Mary Frances O'Connor, The Grieving Brain? I mean, my body was in trauma. And I remember thinking, how do people possibly survive this? I'm a 58-year-old that's not in the fittest of health. How does your heart, how do you physically survive this level of pain and stress in your body? I mean, I even started Googling things about mortality rates for widows in the first year. And, I was thinking, it isn't possible. I just do not know how people survive this degree of pain. So that book helped me on that component of it, because it started to describe to you how your brain treats grief as distress. And then we can understand what distress does to your body.
Yeah.
And so I was able to just understand that what I was feeling wasn't different, that I was highly unlikely to have some organ that couldn't respond to this pain and stress, but I needed to look after myself in it. So there was a level of kind of parallel running in it, which of course you keep getting the messages. Every time I dialed into it, there'd be another message, and it would kind of reinforce this. So reading has definitely and still is actually, information and facts from the stories has really, really helped me. All the kind of preconceived ideas and judgments I guess I had in my head, and the stories I had in my head about the rest of my life, what was going to happen to my body, have just changed. And even recently, so there's a lady, I think she's called Hospice Nurse Julie, something like that. She's very frank and very open on TikTok. But if I was to say there was a part of my grief that was traumatic, it was the palliative care piece for Michael at the end at home. I found that very, very traumatic. I've recently found a video of her when she actually talks about in detail what active dying looks like, and what to expect. And it was everything Michael went through. I mean, literally, it took me from trauma to complete peace. I had such guilt, and I would describe it as PTSD to anybody who talked to me. I would say to people, don't have palliative care at home. And, because it isn't explained to you. You're not exactly treated like an adult in this process. Every time I asked a question during Michael's treatment, even, you'd say, are you sure you want to know the answer? Yeah, and there is a lot of, and I guess they're worried about the responses to it. But yeah, so those things, seeking facts, and a lot of that came through books, because they kind of sit and factual really, really helped. Megan Devine, that was another one. One of those is almost about some things aren't fixed, they're carried, which is a really strong message of yours. So that helped me stop trying to fix myself and stop trying to think I was going to wake up one morning and I hadn't had a loss. I'm going to wake up every morning and I'll have lost Michael, unless somebody works out to bring people back to life. But that doesn't mean to say I'm going to feel the pain I feel now, or the degree of grief I feel now. This is like about month 3, I guess, I'm reading Megan Devine. So yeah, I did immerse myself, and I think it was a combination of softer stuff, harder work around it, facts, enabling me to kind of lose the guilt and around some of the stories that I had, some of the beliefs I had about what I did and didn't control. I guess that's largely it. And then I think the David Kessler Finding Meaning comes a bit later, because that's some of his messages. I probably read that book too early almost, because some of his messages you don't want to hear. I didn't want to build a new life at the start. I felt that would disconnect me from Michael. I didn't want to do it. It made it too real, because I believed that separated it. If I'm okay, I'm getting on with my life, then what does that say about me? So, but it plants the seeds. So actually, in some ways, reading the book, maybe I didn't read it too early. It planted seeds that I definitely came back to and kind of included in my journey later on. I just kind of rejected them that early on and decided, no, that's okay. You didn't have a marriage like me.
Yeah.
So let's put that to the side. But they do plant the seeds. Yeah. And then you come back to them when you're ready to integrate them into where you are.
Yeah.
So I threw myself in.
You did. And I think that that is what's really interesting, actually, because a lot of us shy away from information and facts, because as we know, and we talk about in the program a lot, we are very attached to our stories. and our truth and our belief systems. And our brain wants to be right. So we don't want to be proved wrong in things. You know, our brain feels safe in certainty and familiarity, even if those things aren't serving us and are causing us extra suffering. And it sounds like what you've been able to do, Lynne, you know, you've been really open-minded and open-hearted and aware. So you've created an awareness very early on of some of the stories that you had become attached to, some of the belief systems, you know, the just what you believed to be true in your situation, and actually how that was impacting you. And you were open enough and able to, again, because this isn't something people are always able to do, is take on information early in their grief, because it all feels too much. But you were very much able to go out there and find the resources and the facts, and educate yourself around, do you know what active dying looks like. And you're right, you know, this is a conversation I've had before on one of the podcasts, and I can't remember who I had it with, but I remember having it. But that you know, we watch all these films and read all these movies, and people get sick,
Yes.
and then they just really
Say their
lovely,
farewells.
yeah, they love each other, and they're all sleeping and calm and peaceful, and they just take their last breath very quietly and calmly, and then they cry, and then it's done. And I mean, I haven't seen a death like that. I mean, I haven't seen hundreds of deaths, but I've witnessed deaths. I've been a nurse and been with people when they've died in different scenarios at home and in hospital, and it's not nice to watch. Do you know, watching
No. And she
somebody?
literally put a word to everything. I can't remember all the words, but terminal agitations was what, literally everything,
Yeah.
and described the force feeding, because one of the, you know, was getting traumatized around, he's not getting fluid, he's not getting, and she explained the whole, you know, what was happening to the body. And I think more than anything, I felt it took away the guilt,
Yeah.
that I was inadequate in those moments, and it took away the anxiety that Michael was in pain. I mean, literally, those facts released me, I mean, hugely. I mean, I almost went like that. I just couldn't believe it as I was hearing. I thought, gosh, have you heard me?
And that's amazing. You know, I haven't heard of this lady before. Was it hospice nurse Julie? I think you said. So obviously,
she's
you know,
quite sort of in, but actually she has some lovely stuff around spirituality and stuff. Okay. She brings other doctors in that perhaps more science-based that then talk about actually.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing. I've become much more open in terms of information.
And I think that is, I think, a really helpful skill to have, isn't it, in grief, in the relearning of living again, because so much of what you believe to be true in your life before your person dies doesn't fit in this new reality that you find yourself in for so many reasons. And it's allowing yourself to be open to that rewiring of the brain, you know. And I know you mentioned Mary Frances O'Connor with her The Grieving Brain book, which is brilliant, and we talk about it in our communities, don't we? And she's actually written another book which I've ordered but I haven't read yet. She's written The Grieving Body, which I'm sure is just as insightful and informative, because this is it, like the impact grief has on us, you know, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually.
It's exhausting. I mean, every day is exhausting, because what you don't have anymore is a straightforward day. The highs, the lows, and everything for many, many months is caveated. But, and there's just something that's just there all the time, and getting activated, you know, very early on. So whilst I'd read these things, that still didn't stop me getting activated around someone else's story. And the reality was, maybe I felt anger, but it's because I was sad and because of my story. My story may not have included those things, therefore I'm activated by someone else's. So, you know, that took a few times around the circle to come away from that, you know. But
And it does, doesn't it? I think that's the thing. You have to keep showing up and
Yeah,
doing the work. Like it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, for you, and I'm not saying I don't. There's not an end point. I don't believe there's an end
no,
point. There's a destination that we're working towards because life is forever changing and we are evolving and things happen. But you know, I do think for the most part, what we're working towards is some kind of inner peace and
yes,
to be able to live alongside the grief more peacefully rather than that inner turmoil, that constant activation triggering, like things
yeah,
just coming at you and not being able to find a sense of balance and safety within ourselves. And I think I love what you mentioned there about your grief counselor, and I think this is so important. You know, this holistic overview, it's not just about talking to somebody. It's not just about moving your body. It's not just about regulating your nervous system. It's not just about community and connection. It's so many little parts, isn't it? It's like
yeah,
educating yourself, meeting people, talking to others, bringing a sense of calm within, and learning how to be present in nature, in life, in moments, looking for the good, seeing the glimmers. I mean, it's huge. Like
yes,
you know, all of those little things that there's not one thing you can do. And I love you know, your grief counselor just sounds like she's really pulled in all of those areas and given you the tools because if we haven't got that sense of safety within, if we're not able to regulate ourselves, you know, our nervous systems are completely out of whack, we are completely dysregulated, we're in that stress response constantly,
yeah,
chronically, and whilst we're in that, like there's it's not easy to be able, you can't read, you can't think, you can't make
no.
choices.
You're in the minute, so you're in the hour, which is a lot of what you talk about. But at some point, I thought I got to move out of the hour to
Yeah.
plan.
Yes.
In fact,
Yeah.
I've got to move out of the day to plan.
Yeah.
And how am I going to? I need the tools to understand how to do that in a safe way, so I don't spiral as I do that. Because you know, I think that you know, there's definitely I can see the reason why you talk to people about stay in the hour, stay in the minute, even sometimes,
Yeah.
because of course anxiety is the future
Yeah.
event, isn't it? So it's like stay where you are.
Yeah.
But I knew at some point, okay, I need to stop. I need to open the little box and I need to look out and I need to look ahead. And it's probably a week and it's a month and it's actually a year. You know, if I'm talking about moving home, starting new work, learning, you know, thinking about what my life looks like for the next 20 years. Am I ready? Have I now done the work and got the tools that I can pop back out and say, okay, I'm now going to start looking ahead. I'm not going to stay in the minute, which has served me so well, protected me and kept me safe as I've gone through this. And now let's just stick a toe out and see what looking ahead looks like again now, which I did with such confidence before, you know,
Yeah.
nothing stopped me. I mean, I was the planner. I planned everything, work, career, house moves, you know, loved it. In fact, I didn't like a year to be the same as the previous year. I
No,
was looking for things to change each year, so there's something different going on. And I said, okay, now let's peep out and look ahead.
it's amazing. It is amazing. So really then the one-to-one work, you've obviously clearly found a really amazing grief counselor and you've educated yourself. It sounds like you've learned the tools to regulate. What specifically did you do, Lynne, that worked for you in terms of bringing in that sense of safety?
Um, I think I'd set out, first of all, it was finding myself, reminding myself of who I am, understanding my core values. And I think by doing that individual work, I had got to a place where I thought, you know what, I'm bloody resilient, me. And I'm strong and I'm really proud of that. And hanging on to that. So like putting belief back into myself. And if I doubt it, kind of talk myself back around into it. Come on, bet on yourself here. And I had mapped this, you know, I'd done a mind map, which essentially I had sat down and methodically done okay, what is my finance going to look like? What does home life look like? What does social life look like? You know, what does work look like? As I say, I had retired, but as a trustee, do I want to do more work? And you know, what is my social life? Who are my friends and who am I spending time with? And actually, I think I did that probably about 8 months, the first one, and a vision board to go with it to see the end state. And I looked back at it again recently, knowing I was coming here, and about 2/3 of it I've done, and I'm doing. So I set intentions. This isn't happening by accident, you know. So there's the mindset. I chose to live, and I chose to live fully, and I knew that's harder work than me staying at home. And I could also see very early on how easy it would have been to stay at home, how very easy it would have been to be scary to go out the door.
Yeah.
There's a couple of times where I've travelled and things. I thought, oh, why have I done this? Why have I organised this? So there was definitely a set of intentions, and as I say, a bit back to who you are, and you can do this. And being my own cheerleader, because I'd lost my best cheerleader, and but we're making it happen. I set up mine, this kind of mind map, which eventually just wrote down what I want my life to look like, all the branches of it, a vision board around, positive affirmations. And I've reviewed that with a couple of friends, and my language has got bigger. So early ones would have been every little step is a step. Now it says abundance. Now it says make a life you can't wait to wake up to do. And it's changed over time, talking with friends around that. So, yeah, I feel like I kind of got that core there. It isn't linear. I mean,
No.
It isn't linear at all. I just have a lot more better okay days, fewer bad days, and increasingly more good days. And that's life, I guess, isn't it? I feel like I'm on that life trajectory of what it's like. But, house move was one of them on it. I'm mid to doing that. Again, I'm not leaving it to chance. I'm moving to a whole other area that I haven't lived in for 30 years. I've already reached out to 10 people that I used to know there to say I'm coming. Let's catch up, let's meet up. I've researched groups and things like a photography groups. It's something I'm interested in to join. I've reached back out to family members that maybe I haven't met, for a long time, actually, since I've moved away. So I'm also setting it up to give it the best chance when I get there, that I'm starting to build a community. I've taken on a new role. So I'm doing a non-exec role, which is only a couple of days a month. So it's not full-time, but again, it gives me connections, purposeful and fulfilling work. And I'm learning. I'm really enjoying the process of learning. I'm doing Spanish classes online. I'm doing a photography degree, and also about grief support. I'm continually really curious. I'm doing I'm going virtually to a 3-day program that is actually about grief and well-being, psychedelics and things like that. I notice are included in it. So I'm actually really curious. I think because I've gone through it, I'm like, I went through there. What the heck happened there?
Yeah.
That was not what I was expecting this to look like. So actually just really curious to think, wow, we all go through this.
Yeah.
And I didn't know much about it. I feel like I want to, but but I'm learning as I go along, and as I say, it's still.
And I think what comes across as really powerful, actually, Lynne, and it sounds like it's almost quite natural for you, but I don't know, you might disagree. It's something that I've had to really work on because it hasn't come naturally to me. Is your narrative. And I know you say it's changed, your language has got bigger as you've gone through, but even at the beginning, the way you spoke to yourself, about life, you didn't personalize your loss. It didn't sound, there may have been moments, but it didn't sound like you sat in the why me, why him, why us, this isn't fair, nobody's helping me, I'm on my own, this is really rubbish. Like I say, there would have been moments, but you didn't sit in that space. You also, again, doesn't sound like you didn't give yourself a hard time. You weren't sat there going, oh my God, I can't do this. I'm useless. I'm rubbish. My life's never going to be good again. It's going to be second rate. I don't think I've got it in me. Like I say, I'm sure there were moments where you doubted yourself when things got really hard, but you naturally have the ability to show up for yourself, to be your own cheerleader and say, come on, Lynne, do you know? And right, this is what we're going to do. And this is what we're going to fight for. And we're going to figure out how we do it. And we're going to keep taking steps, and I remember you telling us about the mind map in one of our sessions. You know, you sat down and you created time and space, and you allowed your mind and your heart to open and explore what you were feeling and what you desired from life, and you went there, and then you followed that with a vision board. I remember you sharing that and talking to us about it, and you've not just done it once, you've gone back to it and you've repeated it, and you have this ability to notice your language and use it in a way that supports you, not beat you. You know, we're very quick to use language and speak to ourselves in a way that, you know, is really judgmental, really critical. We minimize what we're doing, the steps that we're taking, how we're feeling. We you know, label ourselves as useless and pathetic and stupid and fat and thick and just like we're just horrible, you know. And I get it. You know, we have this natural negative sort of mindset going on that we all have, but does it sound like that's something that you've allowed to come in and take a hold on you?
Yeah, I think I was highly motivated. This was it's deeply painful to say in that space, isn't it? I've not known pain or impact in my body, anything like it. I completely underestimated it. You know, I'm the first one of my friends to go through this, or I haven't even witnessed it, you know, close hand in any way. It's flipping painful sitting there. So I was highly motivated to get out of it. I think one of the things I drew on quite early, which we say often, is how would you talk to your friend?
Yeah.
How would you talk to your friend if they were going through this? You wouldn't say to them, yes, you are old and a bit fat, aren't you? You're probably not going to be doing all these things these people are doing, are you? Yeah, your best years are behind you, you know.
Yeah.
You're back to 10 there with Michael, but it's all downhill now. And so, you know, I tried to, but of course I did. You know, that's why I was judgmental and angry and defensive if I saw somebody else's story that I didn't think I could achieve in my journey. Well, it's okay because you're this or you're this or you're this, but I'm not that, you know. And you know, I only recognize now, as I say. I mean, it's not that I didn't recognize it in the moment.
No.
You know, I've done a few reactions on social media and things like that. You know, the reflection and learning came later.
Yeah.
But you know, when we know better, we do better. But yeah, I did try to think, how would you talk to a friend about this? And also, there's enough out there. There's enough going on in the world that's not great, that if I'm beating myself up,
Yeah.
I mean, I might as well call it a draw.
Yeah.
At least have
Yeah.
a bit of faith in myself and a bit of, like, you know, championing myself. And, you know, I had a big cheerleader. I had, you know, Michael told me I was amazing for pretty much most of the, he also told me I was annoying and we had lots of fallouts, but he, you know, he told me I was amazing enough that it landed and sat with me. So, you know, I kind of, that was still there.
How did you approach giving yourself permission? Because I think this is a big block for widows. You know, you want to live, right? You know, and you know, I speak to a lot of widows that are like, I want to, but I feel so bad. I feel guilty. He's not here and I am here, and I get to live and he doesn't. And I shouldn't be enjoying myself because he died. And that, you know, again, that comes down to our beliefs, doesn't it? And the stories we tell ourselves. How did you navigate that part? Did you experience those feelings?
Yes, yeah, I definitely did. I definitely did a lot of guilt and things like that. And the measure of how much I loved him, and therefore how much of a nice person I was and a loyal person and all those other things, would be determined about how miserable or how less my life was after he died than it was with him in it. Because how could I possibly build a life that isn't less?
Yeah.
He wasn't this amazing person that added into it. So yes, I definitely did. And a lot of my work was getting into language. I feel no guilt now about building my life. And I know that Michael comes with me. I also know Michael's okay. He's not in any pain. Yeah, and my job is to make me okay. Yeah, there's nothing else I can do to add to Michael's story. I can hold his legacy and, you know, have a daughter and the things I'm surrounded with and the resources I have to do this life with things that we built and created together. But he's okay, and my job's making sure I'm okay until I get to the end of my story.
That's
And I feel no
amazing.
guilt in that. I feel, yeah, no, I feel okay about that. He had a really good life, and he'd want me to have a really good life. I mean, what a waste it would be if my life effectively ended at the same time his did. I mean, he was 11 years older than me. I don't know if that marginally helped. There's a bit in my mind thinking, well, I've got like another 9 years before I get to the age Michael is. Maybe I'll feel a little guilt if I reach a birthday after that. That's some way down the line for me, but I'm sure, many of your community may have gone through that. I haven't had to go through that yet. He was 11 years older than me, so in some ways, the likelihood is he would die before me. Just didn't expect it to be this soon, and we laugh and joke about it. So there was a little bit of that. It just didn't happen as soon. But yeah, I don't want to hold him in his death.
No.
I don't want to hold him in his death. I want to hold him in my future. And so a lot of the work is how do I hold him in my future? His death was a moment in time, a tiny moment in time, actually, in terms of his life. And he did have a great life, and we talked about that. And great life before me and a great life with me, I hope.
Yeah, and I think your ability to reframe your thinking, and notice where the guilt was creeping in, maybe, and you were starting to tell yourself stories and think, no, I don't want to tell myself that story. I want to create a story that allows me to live. And you've completely reframed it and turned it on its head. And you've gone, I'm choosing this story, and I always say to people, don't I, choose the good story.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. And that really helped. It really helped me on the widening stuff. I mean, if I tell the story of the apartment that I'm moving to, I mean, I've been looking on Rightmove for 18 months to find somewhere to move to. I had in my head exactly what I'd like it to look like. Nothing came up. And I rang to view another property with a small niche estate agent that I wouldn't have contacted. And this house was too big, but I thought, do you know what? I like it. I've seen nothing. And he says, do you know what? I've got an apartment just coming up that's off market. They're not going to put it on market. Would you like to look at that? And as soon as he told me, I knew the apartment. I knew exactly where it was. And it was on streets that I want to live on. And it was an apartment that Michael and I had commented on about how lovely it is, at like the ground floor of this villa and things. And I thought, okay, is that coincidence? Is that Michael's energy around, or is it just spectacularly fortunate? The probability of that happening. And then I'm going with the energies there.
yeah,
The energies there.
it's like you say, none of this has happened by accident. This life hasn't just landed in your lap. And yes, I know it's, you've said it. None of this is easy.
No.
It doesn't.
And it is a choice every day. It's very
Yeah.
easy for me to watch. It's very easy for me to activate it, and it's
But then
bloody hard work.
you say that it is easy to do nothing for many reasons. It's easier to stay in the familiar, the known, and to kind of go, I can't be bothered to do the work. But actually, sitting in the pain and the discomfort and the heartache, yes, in the moment that's easier, but actually long term, staying in
Yeah,
that place is
very
hard.
difficult. I've
It's
never known
re-
anything like it. I
like
really have just never.
yeah, that's horrible. So it's almost like you have to choose your heart, right?
Yes.
Because staying where you are, as much as it might feel easier here and now, like that's gonna really that's going to show up in your physical
Yeah.
body, your mental body, your social situation. Everything is going to be painful and small and hard, and life is going to be horrible for a very, very long time. However, you choose to show up for yourself. You choose to educate, learn, grow, be kind to yourself, learn, like you've said, really learning how to support you and your well-being, which is
Yeah.
hard. When you have a partnership and somebody that's your cheerleader, that's got your back, that's showing up for you, you've got to show up for yourself, right? And that's a
Yes.
different way of being. But that hard gets you to a place of finding that inner peace and being able to live, and live a life that, no, it's not perfect. And of course there are times when you miss
As
the
life isn't,
person.
I mean, yeah. Even if
Yeah,
Michael was here, we were going to have highs and lows and in betweens and fallouts and who knows,
yeah,
illnesses and
yeah.
and those kinds of things. But
It's exactly that. There's no perfect life. And I think to think that we can get to a place where everything's rosy and amazing and there's no challenges, that's not realistic. But I think you can absolutely think about, how do I want to feel, and what do I want my life to look like? And I always say to people, if you don't know what you do want, start from what you don't want, right? Because
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know about you, Lynn, but I knew I absolutely did not want to live a life that was small, mundane, dark.
But unsafe. I mean, the very first thing was, I feel unsafe. I
Yeah.
cannot live the rest of my life feeling unsafe. And I knew I had to feel safe with me, that
Yes.
I could look after myself. So just safety, that initial instinctive thing is, how do I feel safe? And some of that is drawing on my reserves in. I've got to be up for this life on my own now. That's the start of feeling safe, is I've got to feel I can do this. I
Yes.
can build a life that isn't, I'm not going to be sat here afraid of living whatever form that looks like, right from the very really unsafe, like, gosh, so I'm going to physically, I feel unsafe, but just the whole mentally thing. So, yeah, I mean, that's the first thing, isn't it? Because as you say, the first order is, can I
Yeah.
spend 20 years feeling unsafe in this world?
No.
And the prospect of that, it is the basic stuff before it ever becomes, oh, actually, never mind unsafe. This actually could be quite good fun. I could actually have really good time and do some different things. I've lost 40 pounds since Michael died. I do think to myself, Michael, I've been thinking, oh, great. Yeah, you wait till I've gone. And then you're suddenly bothered about your health and so sorting it out. But again, it's part of, when you haven't got somebody telling you how beautiful you are, you have to feel beautiful yourself. And for me, some of that was my weight. It's different for all of us, isn't it, around where it is.
Well
Um,
done.
but yeah, I think it started with safety, and then I'm like, oh, actually, do you know what? I'm feeling good about keeping myself safe. Maybe I can do a
Yeah.
bit more than just be safe in this world going forward. Maybe I actually can. And it isn't a word you want to hear. You talk about a lot, growth and transformation. You just think, seriously? And
Mm.
particularly at my age, I was thinking, this stuff's done. And maybe if I was younger, kind of thing. You don't think about, but then, as I say, you cover off the essentials.
Yeah.
I feel safe. I can get out of bed on a morning. I'm not have high anxiety every day of every moment. I can function.
Yeah.
And now actually, maybe I can get excited about, maybe all of the good time isn't behind me, and actually even me in this body at this age can actually have fun for the rest of my life. It's going to look different to how I had fun, but yeah, have
It's like I
fun.
always say, it's going to look different, but different doesn't mean
Oh
bad.
God, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
and and it's just those small steps that, yes, things at the beginning, you don't use the big words, you don't have the big
No,
dreams, you don't necessarily believe it's possible, but if you can just start and take a step and open your heart and open your mind,
and
like,
surprise yourself. You're like,
yeah,
whoa, okay,
yeah,
okay, let's
that.
do the next one.
And you learn so much about yourself if you allow yourself to, do you know, if you can,
Yes.
you know.
And that permission, I think, is a big thing. And
Yeah.
and I say we each have different marriages, different circumstances, different grief
Yeah.
that is or isn't complicated, and
Yeah.
everything else that goes with it. And the secondary losses, I didn't have a whole bundle of secondary losses to add into it again, which allowed me to keep
Yeah.
focusing, and other challenges in it. So, but yeah, I talk to him sometimes, and I will say, rest in peace, sweets. I got this.
I love that, and you really have. It sounds like he absolutely helps you on this journey, and that continuation of your love for him just shines through you. And like you say, you I love what you said about, you can't change anything about his story. His story
Yeah, it's
is
done, and
done.
it was a nice story. It was a really
Yeah,
nice story to the
yeah,
end, and I
yes.
quite like my story to be a really nice story to the end.
That is beautiful, Lynn. Oh my God, I could talk to you for hours. I think just naturally, I know it doesn't come naturally for people, but we can learn this. And this is a thing, like, I didn't naturally have those skills when Simon died. I learned them. and they have transformed my life. And I'm not saying, you've had to learn things too, but you've also had a bit of a natural ability within you, and which has come from, your life experiences and what's happened for you. So even if people are listening to this and thinking, well, yeah, okay, like we do, oh, it's all right for her. Yes. She can do this and she can do that. And well, I can't do that. It's not as easy for me. Like, if you approach your grief like that, it won't happen. It won't happen, because you're telling yourself a story that you can't do something, but you can. It'll look different to your story. All of our stories are different. But the point is, if you can do this, anyone can do this. If I can do it, anyone can do it. We're coming at it from
I'm not coming as a professional. I'm making it up as I go along. Yes, drawing on reserves and going all over the place till I got there.
Yes.
But and as you say, everyone's life, they want different things as well out of their life. Well, we all have different things about what great would look like for the rest of our lives, don't we? And
you've been brave, like you say, you've signed up for courses, you've learned new skills, you keep working towards something, and that's not easy. It's not, when you're exhausted and you're tired and you're grieving, like, these aren't, you can't sit there and go, well, okay, that's easy for her to do. It's not, but you're making a choice because you want to live. And those choices are working for you and not against you. And Lynne, your story, honestly, you are so inspirational. You are an incredible woman. You clearly have a thirst for knowledge and learning. And I know you've achieved a lot in your life. You are very intelligent and very capable. But even still, when you lose your life partner, it takes you to your knees. You're no different to any of us, that I'm sure you were stripped of everything. In those moments.
It was just, I wasn't close with my parents. It genuinely was the first.
Yeah.
And I completely underestimated it. I'm so glad that I reached out. And now I realise what it cost. I actually met a widow that was 18 months in that gave me your name. Really early in, probably 3 weeks in, and she reached out through another friend and said, I'll meet Lynne and talk to her. And now I realise how much that took her to extend that when she was still deeply in her grief. I mean, I've seen her change, but the fact that she reached out because she knew and I knew where you were, and I feel like I want to do that as well. I want to have the best knowledge as well to help other people and keep helping myself, because you say this doesn't end. I'm hoping it continues to soften, but it doesn't end.
Well, I'm battling with that a little bit in my mind, I have to be honest, because this is a whole other conversation for another podcast, I'm sure. But I've kind of shared it a bit in my intro to this season, that what is grief, and it depends what you define grief as, and do we grieve forever? And I have been honest and said I don't actively grieve anymore. I've said that. But what is the end, and what does that look like, and what does, if it doesn't end, what does it look like if it continues throughout the whole of life? And I'm really exploring this at the moment, and this is the thing, isn't it?
Like, maybe what does grief look like? I miss him.
Yes.
I don't cry daily. I'm not sad on a permanent basis. And instead, I'm thinking about this. It's probably too early almost to put it out because I haven't worked it through, but I don't identify as a widow as my first thing anymore. It's a really strange thing to say. I'm trying to work out what that means or why I feel that. I'm not embarrassed, isn't the word, which is why I don't lead with that. I don't like to. I almost feel a bit of a fraud when I lead with that. I'm still trying to work through why I feel like that. I feel like single Lynne. I'm in single Lynne part of my journey now. I would have been horrified by that prospect of ever feeling like that at the start of my journey.
Yeah.
But I don't identify as this widow thing. I'm not sad. I'm not in deep grief. I miss him. I love him.
Yeah.
I can't bring him back. And I really want a good life.
And that's really interesting because I had a voice note from a fellow widow friend the other day, and I think she's coming up to sort of 5 or 6 years, and she said, you know, I'm a widow and I'll always be a widow. And again, I've shared this in a podcast, and I've talked to Debbie about it. Debbie's been on the podcast, and she supports me in all that we do. You know, Debbie.
Yeah.
And we've said, do you know, I'm not a widow anymore. I'm a woman that has been widowed in life, but
Yes.
I'm not a widow. That like my and it's that, isn't it? It's and maybe that's what this whole grieving thing is. It's because it's constantly evolving and changing. We're always trying to redefine what that means to us and what that looks like. And I think maybe that's it. It's grief isn't one dimensional, it's not linear, it's not one thing. And to say that you grieve forever doesn't mean that it's going to look like it does at the beginning.
No. No.
Because it's always, you're changing, you're evolving, you're growing.
Yes.
Life wraps around it. But do we say I grieve forever? And that's something I'm really,
Yeah, and I'm not sure what the definition of grief is. I'll
yeah.
miss forever, but
Mm,
it isn't my first point of identity anymore, a
no,
widow. It just
yeah.
isn't. Because my life, well, I don't know what I thought a widow's life looked like, but it doesn't look like that. And more as I change it, as I do things, new jobs, new people, new home, I'm Lynne.
And this is remarkable because you're in July, okay? So maybe when this podcast comes out, we're in June now, but come
Yeah,
July, you'll be at the 2 year mark. And we always talk about, and David Kessery talks about this, doesn't he? You'll know that the first 2 years are the early days.
yeah,
Do you know? And a lot of people say the second year is worse than the first year. And I'm not saying that everyone's wrong if that's what they're experiencing, because if they did it differently, they could be where you are. I'm not saying that, but it just goes to show that it what is possible for starters and how differently it can look for everyone, but also the things that we can do to support ourselves in it, because actually a lot of the suffering that we experience does come from within, and the
yes,
stories, the beliefs, the things that
yes,
we attach ourselves to,
yeah.
and
My
it's
second year was definitely much better than my first.
yeah,
But I mean, there are certain things I've seen where so dates don't activate me. And
no,
I forgot from about month two, the 6th of the month is the day.
yeah,
I forgot on the 6th of July, even like the first anniversary. And in fact, I'm doing something this time on the 6th of July. And I said, oh, actually, that's
yeah.
going to be the second year anniversary. I didn't know. Yeah, it wasn't even in my mind as I was booking it. Yeah, I don't think about the day of the week and things like that. And I don't know, maybe it certainly helped me because I'm not creating these
Well, it's
activating
almost like
moments.
you're not attached to those dates
It's
or
just a
those,
day. I
because
mean, it's
yeah,
just a day.
and your focus sounds like it's very much on the life that you lived and what you both stood for in that life and what you valued and what was meaningful to you, and that's what you're attached to, and that's what you're taking through, not the day he died, the day that he got his prognosis,
Yes,
I know you've just celebrated your big birthday, and
yes,
you said you kind of got a bit reflective, but you didn't necessarily kind of get into it. You did something lovely for you. And I guess it's that as well, isn't it? What are we attaching ourselves to, and what are we making things mean? And are those things helpful to us? And
yes, yeah,
why do we, we're very conditioned by society and how we believe things should be done by how
yeah.
other people do it. And you've really broken the mold, Lynne. You're not going along with how society thinks we should grieve or how everyone else does it. You really have lent into your truth, the essence of Lynne, what you stand for, what you value, what's important to you. And you have approached this from a place of authenticity and not attachment. You're not here to please anyone, to do it right. You're here to figure out what's right for you.
Mm.
And I have to say, Lynne, you've blown my mind with it. Do you know, like if I was being widowed now, I'd be hunting you down, and I'd be like, I need you on my side. What you've learned, what you've gained, how you've approached it is phenomenal. It really is. And I'm not saying that other people aren't, because I know it's so hard. It really is. But I mean, there's no good or bad way of doing it. And I certainly don't want people to take that message from this at all. But your determination, your authenticity, and your ability to kind of go, I'm going to figure this out for me, and I'm going to show up for myself. They're not easy things to do, and that's what I mean by it. It's taken me years to learn those skills and those abilities.
Well, you didn't have your groups when you did it. I mean, they've been
No.
absolutely amazing. I mean, the other thing I haven't mentioned is the friendships.
Yeah.
I mean, you purposely set up the bigger community and the smaller groups.
Yeah.
Those are people that we still probably WhatsApp 100 times a day. Those people are the people that really get the weekly check-in call. My friends are absolutely amazing. They haven't been through this, and they can't be there 6 times each day when I have a low in week 3 and week something. And, and this group of ladies did, the friendship is a huge, huge gain through this, has been the friendships of people. And I think, again, one of the things is we all have that same ambition about what we want our future life. And that's helped.
Yeah.
And then you pick each other up. I mean, I can't tell you how valuable that in itself was worth the money of your program, which is already really good value. Never mind all the tools and everything else.
Yeah.
But actually, you getting the bigger community in terms of witnessing, and the smaller groups in terms of that real bonding support. That in the moment I'm on my knees because this just happened.
Yeah.
And I need someone to just, talk me back up out of it.
And I do love that about the community. I know there's a little group of 4 of you, isn't there? You're great mates, and it's so wonderful to see. And that's what I do love about the community, is that it does attract people that have that inner desire, that inner, yes, everyone's a widow, but so, and this is I think this is what's so important about being authentic and being true to yourself, because you then attract the right people into your world. Yeah. And because you and the ladies that you're very friendly with, you've got this knowing of what it is you want and what you're fighting for. And well, you don't know what you're fighting for, because we're fighting for a life we can't see, but we're fighting for a life that has some joy and peace in it.
Yeah.
And that, when you allow yourself to own those things that you want, you then find the people that want that too, and you work together. And it's so powerful.
I think there is something about knowing you and what you want, as you say, then you reinforce it by your actions and the things you do. And how I've accessed your program support have been to, well, where are the bits that help me? Where are the bits that help me against what I've actually already decided what I want for my life? I'm not looking for you to tell me what I should want for my life as a widow, because that looks different for all of us, doesn't it?
Yeah. And that's the beauty of the program, isn't it? Like, it's not
absolutely
me telling you, and this is why the big numbers, I think, work in it, because you all draw from each other. You get all people from all different walks of life and circumstances and situations sharing their outlook, their perspective, their choices, their behaviors. And you're just drawing all these little nuggets from everyone everywhere, because that's where the power lies. I only have my experience, and I can.
And they help you rethink. You think, oh, okay, so if that story's true, or that fact is true, or that version is true, maybe I should look at my version. Actually, it prompts me to think about, okay, how does my story fit with that? Because clearly there's another story over here that's different to mine.
Exactly.
So maybe mine isn't factual and the truth in the world.
It's Lynne, honestly, I keep saying, I talk to you for hours and we keep going off in other directions. We'll be here all night and people will be like, will you two shut up?
I've even got my doggy here, like, where's my tea? She's literally sat here at the door.
She's very quiet.
Where is my food?
Oh, Lynne, honestly, I can't thank you enough, for coming on and sharing. I know people will have drawn so much gold from this conversation, but also just being part of the community. You've shared so much gold in our sessions. People are just so wanting to learn from you and what you share, because it's always so valuable and so insightful.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying in. Remember, it's kind of just a beautiful community restorative, isn't it? And you can pick and choose, like the book club, the yoga, and many of the sessions. They're just really helpful because they are about life skills. And so so you're not getting rid of me.
Good. I'm so pleased. I'm so pleased. I love that. Lynne, you're a star. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, darling. Bless you. Thanks, Lynne. Thank you so much for listening to the Widow Podcast with me, Karen Sutton. If you would like more support, head to karensutton.co.uk or explore the many other episodes for more conversations and support. You can do so much to help you take steps forward towards a brighter future, and I'd love to help you do that.